Hey everyone, and welcome to another video of the People Analytics channel. Now today we're going to be discussing a very interesting topic. It's probably one of the most important things you'll do as an employee, and that is ask for a promotion. Now over the past few days I've received a lot of comments asking me how can you utilize data to strengthen your promotion requests. So today I'm going to walk you through the top 5 things you can do to integrate data into your promotion justification, and hopefully that'll give you some benefit. Now, one caveat here, as part of the discussion, I'm going to walk you through 2 types of employees. There are alpha employees and there are beta employees. Now, I know what you're thinking. Your ego's kind of puffing yourself up and you're like, I've always been an alpha employee my whole life. That's not really the point. The key is to have self-awareness about how the company values your position, anchors your position relative to the strategy, and also how your behaviors are perceived. Those 2 things determine whether you're an alpha or a beta. And once you know that and you integrate my tips, you'll be successful. So if you haven't done so already, please hit like and subscribe, and let's keep learning. Even in a video about promotions, gotta throw the Einstein quote out there. And remember, the whole purpose of People Analytics is to make executives' conversations better. And what situation is more important than your promotion to make sure that the conversation goes well? So let's listen to Einstein, where he said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Okay, on to how to use data to push your promotion. As part of this video, we're going to go through 2 different case studies. One for a high potential employee seeking a promotion after the first year, and then another for a loyal and stable employee seeking a promotion after 5 years in the position. But regardless of who you are, there are some key principles that I'd like you to keep in mind. And those are as follows. There are heuristic biases that management, especially senior management, have when it comes to anchoring employees to a position and also evaluating their promotions. The second is there is such a thing as being an alpha or beta employee, and I'll talk to you about the implications of that, but the key is to be self-aware about who you are at the particular time and not to be offended by it, to actually make it work for you. And then the third and most important thing is you gotta love this stuff. You have to embrace competition and see it as a way to perfect your craft. If you do so, the conversations will always go well. So for the first case study, please meet Jane. Jane is an alpha employee and a high potential in the company. She's only been here for a year, but she's seeking a promotion, and I'm going to show you the top 5 tips that she can use in terms of integrating data into her promotion request. Now remember, the fact that Jane thinks she's a high potential employee is irrelevant. She's only an alpha because management believes that, and having that self-awareness helps shape the strategies you use to request a promotion. Before going over the top 5 tips, I just want to re-emphasize that self-awareness about how the company sees you is a critical success factor. Sometimes in your career you'll be an alpha, other times a beta. And yes, it's behavioral, but it also has to do with how your role is valued in the business. Some companies like finance people, others like marketing and HR folks. If you lack that self-awareness, the strategies you use will not fit the discussion you need to have. Okay, tip number 1, you want to choose the location of the battlefield, data-wise, of course. Now, a lot of people make the mistakes where they come in and they have a balanced set of metrics and they say, I've delivered on this number, and that number. And that's really what a beta employee should be doing. If you're an alpha, if you're a high potential, you need to pick one project, one initiative that you know management cares about and that has been uniquely identified to you as contributing. And once you identify that initiative, that is the field that you're going to argue your promotion, and all the metrics that you present will be based on that one initiative. The benefit of doing this tip is that it actually limits the conversation. If you can force your management team to discuss an initiative that you've succeeded at and to anchor all conversations regarding your promotion against that initiative, you'll always have the advantage. Now that you've chosen the field of battle that you'll argue your promotion on, you want to use one data point to lead the charge. Now, if you've correctly estimated that management sees you as a high potential, this tip works. Essentially, what you want to do is talk about the one initiative where you've added value and tell them the baseline and then the end result and how you've improved things over time. You see this in sports all the time, is that if an individual is seeking a higher salary, they usually quote the one statistic that demonstrates their value. It's not a bunch of different numbers. XYZ football player threw this many touchdown passes. XYZ pitcher has this ERA. It's really easy for management to understand, and again, it limits the conversation. This works for high potential, not necessarily for a beta employee, but if you've correctly estimated yourself in management's eyes, you want to choose the field of battle and then focus on one data point that makes you look very, very good. Tip number 3, you always want to be seeking 2 promotions, one for your boss and the other for you. One of the first things you should be doing when you start an assignment is asking yourself, how can you get your boss promoted? Because if you do so, it'll naturally help you. Now, from a data perspective, this is a nuanced skill. You want to create 2 sets of narratives and 2 sets of numbers. One narrative and one set of numbers should be helping your boss advance his or her career. And the other number and other set of narratives should be specifically showing how great you are as a high potential employee. If you make the mistake on the data side and only have one set of numbers, you will get the promotion, but I promise you that promotion will go to your boss. So the trick is that once you've established the field of battle and you've picked a data point to lead the charge, you have to create a narrative that shows how your boss contributed and also how you contributed. And that will lead to 2 promotions, which is usually required. Tip number 4, you either want to win the conversation or create an emotional deficit that puts you in a favorable position moving forward. Now remember, if you've narrowed the conversation by choosing the field of battle, by limiting the data points, and by creating a dual narrative that makes your boss look good as well as yourself, if the answer is no, it's really your boss simply exercising personal authority. And as long as you handle that no in a positive and professional manner, it actually creates an emotional deficit for your boss that puts you in a favorable position for future conversations. And this is the whole point. Remember what I said is you want to enjoy competition and use these situations to perfect your craft. You either are able to advance through a promotion or you create that emotional deficit that helps you be more successful in future conversations. Either way, you can't get emotional about the answer. Stay humble if it's a yes, and if it's a no, just make sure that deficit's in place to help you in the future. Tip number 5, and this is really only something that a high potential alpha employee is comfortable doing, but you need to be a shameless and consistent promoter, but not of yourself, of your team and of the company. So on a daily basis, you need to be identifying what are the things that your team is doing that is adding value to the business. And that should be advocated and posted on LinkedIn. It should be advocated within internal company awards and in meetings that are important. Whenever you have a chance to highlight the contributions of your team, irrespective of it actually is you doing the job, it's going to brand that you are part of a high-performing department and that you, as the leader, are having a big impact. So if you've done this correctly and you're an alpha employee, you need to make sure that you're shamelessly and consistently promoting the successes of your team. Now, if you're a beta employee, this would actually backfire on you pretty well. This is where the self-awareness comes in, and we're going to talk about the next scenario about what to do if you're a beta employee. Scenario number 2, let's meet David. He's a loyal and consistent employee and has been with the organization for 5 years seeking his first promotion. Now as a beta, the data points and strategies he uses will be different. Tip number 1, if you haven't been promoted for 5 years, you really need to start laying the groundwork months in advance for your promotion. Now, unlike the high potential employee, you do not want to choose the field of battle, nor do you want to rely on one data point. You simply cannot do that because management sees you as a beta. So instead, you actually want to broaden the net of conversation. You want to show all the ways that you're being consistent, reliable, and sustaining performance over the long term. So in this case, a beta employee would show more numbers, would show more ways of contributing, and that would help shape the conversation in a more balanced way. Tip number 2, you really want to understand the biases that are affecting senior management's view of you as an employee. Now, some of it is behavioral, but most of it is actually how your position is valued in the organization. So the first step is to really understand that management has the following biases when they're making decisions. Recency error, they really look at what you've done most recently, and they're not going to look at the entire 5 years when they're determining your promotion, for example. The next is anchoring. So if they've anchored you to a particular position or a particular band of performance, even if you present them with new information, it's really going to be difficult for them to get out of how they've originally anchored you. So once you have an understanding of what their biases are, then you need to use data to not change those biases, but to make them work for you. So if you're anchored as a consistent employee and a stable employee, then choose data that shows how you have no absenteeism, no safety violations, and so forth. Based on how they see you is the data you use. Tip number 3 is you want to lead with loyalty and a promise of sustained performance. So after you've shown your boss a balanced set of metrics that show how you've actually added value as a beta employee over a sustained period of time, then you shift the conversation to say, you know, I think I can do this moving forward and continue this contribution moving forward with potentially more responsibilities. And even though we know that promotions are so difficult in this company, I think it would be a very good message to send to all the employees that if you work hard in a sustained way, being a good teammate over 5 years, that you get a promotion. This is creating that emotional deficit with your boss, but it's using a different tactic. Instead of using the high potential approach, you're using the I'm a good teammate tactic to create that emotional deficit. And the data you show should just re-emphasize sustained performance. Tip number 4, and this is important, you need to seek out the alpha on the team and ask that person to advocate your case to the boss. Now, one of the issues that employees run into is they let their ego get in the way. They may feel that behaviorally they're an alpha, but for whatever reason, you need to have the self-awareness to understand that based on a little bit of your behavior, but also how you're placed in the company, the organization has a view of you. And if they have a view that you're a beta, you have to operate within that context to be successful. So if you've been labeled as a beta employee, the only way for you to get a promotion is then to seek out the alpha the company has identified and really have a good relationship with that person. Now, once you suck out the alpha, then you can hand your set of balanced metrics to that individual, and that person, being who they are, will advocate your case because, as I said before, being a high potential means advocating accomplishments of your team. Tip number 5, make sure that you focus the discussion on your career path more so than an initiative or a data point. Now, it's important to remember that alphas or high potential employees, those are the individuals that do jobs. They do individual positions and they move from assignment to assignment. Beta employees, they do career paths. So when you're asking for a promotion, if you're talking to your boss about, I think I can do that job, your boss is going to compare you against a high potential, and it may not go well for you if the company has a view that you're a beta. A much better point is to say, I want to take the next step in my career path, and based on what I've done over the past 5 years, I think I'm entitled to more job responsibilities within the career path X, Y, and Z. And then you show the additional data points that you could work on moving forward and how what you've done in the past could be translated to this new career path. The last point I want to make, everyone, is to truly enjoy the competition that comes with being a professional. Whatever conversation you're having, you should see these circumstances as an opportunity to perfect your craft. You're either laying the foundation for a future promotion, or you're becoming more self-aware about how your behavior and your position in the company is anchoring you either as an alpha or beta employee. Don't be crushed if you're told no, and don't get an ego if you're told yes. You're simply perfecting your craft. Okay, so that's it for this week. If you like this video, please click subscribe. I'll upload more content. Have a great day and keep learning.